everybody, and welcome back to part 2 of our Core 2019 review. Like normal, I'm Aaron.
I'm Drew.
And we're talking about the back half. So in the first half, we talked about white, blue, and black cards. So this time we're talking about red, green, and multicolored cards. So if you want to see the first part, you check the description wherever you're listening or watching this, and we'll have the first part. Otherwise, you know,
bring on the red 2 drops.
Bring on the red 2 drops. But before that, because I promised I wouldn't forget, I'd like to thank the Mana Base, your home base for all things Magic the Gathering, and they're the sweet content provider that lets us bring you this kind of almost bi-monthly content. Bi-monthly is not right, is it? No, it's every 2 months. Twice a month content that we all know you want. Or that we have, you know, we're not really doing much else. So, anyway, we ended on Bone Dragon last episode, and all the black creatures. This time we got all the red creatures. Does it even have more in common this time than all interacting well with Bone Dragon? So we're going to start off with Dark Dweller Oracle. 1 in a red for a 2/2 Goblin Shaman. Pay 1, sacrifice a creature, exile top party library. You may play that card this turn. You obviously still pay the cost for it.
Like Abbott.
Like Abbott. So this card is not in your deck to attack, but in the more dynamic red X.
Well, he's kind of in your deck to attack, because that's what our creatures do. So
that's literally what red does. If he has to attack, he can. But more often, he's sitting there in like your red X token deck, and he or just turns shitty guys, like kind of like maybe some other cards we're talking about later, into rolling the dice on a new card. So this card, I guess, you're not putting it in your deck to attack, but to kind of fill a different role. And a lot of these red creatures are actually play different rules, and that's kind of what makes red cards exciting. You know, it's easy to find all the Jackal Pups and the aggressive attacking creatures, the Borderline Marauders, the War Name Aspirants. But it's interesting when red does something beyond only attack, and Dark Dweller Oracle does a pretty good job at that. And I think they've been doing pushing a lot of those kind of cards in red recently.
Getting a lot of changes and rotation. Like, he was on my list for a while until we got a different red 2 drop in this list. So.
Yeah. So this card is interesting. If depending how deep you go in tokens, I think this card's really, really cool. You know, it kind of adds a different dynamic to that deck. In terms of just attacking, he's definitely not the kind of guy you want. But if you have the space to fit this guy in, he does again add a different angle that your red deck can attack from. Kind of like a Abbott on steroids. You know, just kind of start throwing guys into the dumpster for new cards.
It's slowly pushing red into a different, not just mono red attack burn direction, which is great.
Yep, absolutely. So, Dismissive Pyromancer is the next card. 1 in red, 2/2. Human Wizard. Pay a red, tap, discard a card to draw a card. Pay 2 a red, tap him, sacrifice him, deal 4 damage to our creature.
Might be Bone Dragon.
It kills Bone Dragon. So it has to be good, right? Bone Dragon is now the menace of black 5 drops, so this card counters Bone Dragon is fine. Also, you can discard Bone Dragon to buy back Bone Dragon later on. So this card is another red creature. Doesn't, again, not really meant for attacking, but kind of serves multi-purpose. Has a weird loot effect. Flame Slash is something. This card's, I talked about quite a bit. The reaction on this card is quite the mixed bag. I'm originally not a fan. I still think I'm a huge fan of it. It is interesting. I like that they keep pushing these red cards, specifically creatures, into different more dynamic stuff like that, not just attacking. So,
what do you think of the flavor text?
Burn, burn, keep, burn. I guess I was just saying it doesn't make any sense, but he's going through all the books, which makes sense, which goes along with his loot effect. But I don't. Does he sacrifice himself to deal 4 damage to our creature because he just gets caught in his fire?
The bookcase falls on him.
I guess. This card's weird. I'm not sure how to... I think this card's definitely going to have to play it to kind of see how it turns out.
My first impression is extremely clunky, and you'll never find the mana to do all you want when you want to do it.
Yeah, it's like, I like this loot effect more than anything else. The Flame Slash effect seems like an afterthought. It's slow. I want it for the loot effect. I think the Flame Slash effect's just a bonus, but at the same time, its body isn't good. So I'm not quite sure why I'm playing this kind of like red, have to activate cost looter.
Like, I want more like Faithless looting cards, but I don't think I want this card.
Yeah, so unlike the Dark Dweller Oracle, who kind of serves as fits a certain niche. Dismissive Pyromancer, while more open-ended, fits into more decks. I like actually less. Because I'm not quite sure what I want to put it in. I don't want to put it into my aggressive decks.
Well, you can. He just attacks.
I can.
As any regular card.
Just a regular bear, but
if you're getting mana flooded, he can maybe help you out.
But again, I don't really want to fit in my mid-range deck, so he'll most likely end up in these aggressive decks. And again, his body's kind of whatever. His loot effect is fine. His flame slash effect hopefully gets something big out of the way, like Bone Dragon. But I just don't know how I feel about it. It just feels slow. The flame slash effect feels like it costs a lot of mana. Maybe that's why I don't like it ultimately. I think 3 to sacrifice it for flame slash for 4 damage is a little too much, and I think that's kind of where I'm at.
Maybe it was instead of tap.
Yeah, if it was 3 activate without having to sacrifice it, I'd be way more into this card. It'd obviously make it a lot better. You can block, loot, throw my guy over here, push the Tower of Falling Books over there on that creature. So without that though, with it just as is, I think it's a little too clunky. I'm not super jacked up about it.
You gonna try it?
I will not try this one. I'm more inclined to try Dark Dweller Oracle, because like I said, it is just a more interesting card.
And it can do its effect without tapping.
It can do effects without attacking. So, Dismissive Pyromancer is a cool creature, though. Again, very happy that this card exists. Cool that it is an interesting design space. Maybe down the road I'll consider it again, when eventually Red's creatures aren't just only attacking creatures. But, as it is, I'm off. What are you?
This is not the 2-drop I'm looking for from the set. It's still coming up.
Oh, is it the next one? Is it the other red 2-drop, Goblin Instigator?
There's that thing where we kept underrating red 2-drops, so we
just talk about all of them, so we can't possibly mess them up. Goblin Instigator is 1 in a red, 1/1. Goblin Rogue. When it enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 Goblin token.
It's a nice dragon fodder.
It's a dragon fodder on legs, so it just makes it better, because you can abuse it more. And it's definitely no War Marshal.
Correct.
But it is interesting. Its art is so bad. I think it's the worst art in the set.
It's extremely generic goblin that doesn't really fit in with the rest of the art.
It's really bad. So again, this card's cool. I'm not super excited about it, but it's cool that it exists. Again, if you want to go deeper into this Red X token deck,
that's a great deck.
Which is super
fun
deck.
It exists.
And it's something more you can do with red. This card's great. Fits into that slot perfectly.
This is the one I've been waiting for.
You have to be
extremely boring.
This card isn't as boring as Goblin Instigator. Viashino Pyromancer is 1 in a red for a 2/1. As you notice, every single card we've talked about is 1 in a red. When Viashino Pyromancer enters a battlefield, it deals 2 damage to target player or planeswalker.
Sign me up.
Boring. Drew's in. This card's probably fine.
I can't see it being terrible.
Oh, it puts me to sleep though.
That's fine.
It's I'm sure it's fine. I'm not gonna be happy about it. I'm not gonna try it. I'm not trying it right away at least. Drew is.
Okay.
He's sticking the mud. I would try Goblin Instigator over it first if its art wasn't abysmal.
It's like pointing. What's over there?
I like the flavor text of "We can take him. You go first." It's pretty funny. But
better flavor text than the Pyromancer.
It is. So, if Viashino Pyromancer is fine. It is cool. It is interesting that it hits player or planeswalker. I guess old wording would just make it do the same thing. So, red cards. They all cost 2. So that brings us to green. And we get to start off with the Flavor Fail Goreclaw Terror of Cal Sisma. 3 to green, 4/3. Legendary Bear isn't a 2/2. Thanks for nothing, Wizards. Creature spell.
Bears are 2/2s.
It has to be bear. Creature spells you cast with power 4 or greater. Cost 2 less to cast. Whenever Goreclaw Terror of Cal Sisma attacks, each creature you control with power 4 or greater gets +1/+1 against your trampled 10 turn.
So I read this thing, and I didn't want to like it, because it does a lot of things, and I'm not sure if it does a lot of things well, but I think they're all in the general direction.
Memes well.
Yeah. It's the general direction that you want to do when you're green decks. So.
There's a little bit of space in green 4s.
It's got the right casting cost.
It does. 3 to green, 4/3 body isn't terrible. Well, it's not true. Dying Lightning Bolt isn't the greatest. But it does, you get to play it and then hopefully kind of like obviously play big guys afterwards, right? Like, that's a little bit what this card's designed to do. The overrun effect is kind of whatever. I'm not super jacked up about it, but this card seems fine. Again, there is a bit of space to wiggle in green 4-drops. It is interesting to try out. I think for my flex 4-drop, I think I have what's his name? The Amica card we were super high on. Vizier of
Menagerie?
Visitor Menagerie.
I like that guy.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Visitor Menagerie, but that'd be a card that, like, again, it is interesting. I'd be willing to swap it out for this thing for maybe a couple games to see, or a couple cubes to see how it interacts. This card definitely has a lot more stories attached to it. I don't know what the flavor of the bear making your other giant guys costing less. It has interesting art. It makes Blackworm cost less. Makes Bone Dragon cost less.
Trades with Bone Dragon, too.
Trades with Bone Dragon. This card's interesting. I'll probably try it. I don't know if I'll try it day one, but I'll probably end up trying it eventually.
I'll slot it in day one.
Ooh. Get those foils before they get too expensive. Just kidding. Runic Armasaur. This card's weird. Dinosaur. Dinosaur's sick. 1 green, 2/5. Whenever an opponent activates an ability of a creature or land that isn't a mana ability, you may draw a card. This card is weird.
I really, really want to like this thing. But
Do you think they're going to unban Twin now? I draw 10 cards and then die. Just kidding. Anyway. This card is weird. The body's fine. The mana cost is whatever. I don't know what exactly I'm putting in my cube for, but it's an interesting card. It's like a green hate bear that isn't really a hate bear.
The ability, you're playing it because it has an ability, right? If it didn't have an ability, you wouldn't play it.
Oh, so you have Doran.
Yeah, I know. I really love Doran.
What's new Doran called?
The dragon?
Yeah. Which one of the dragons is it? No, not Palladium Morris.
Starts with an A. Arcades?
Arcades. Arcades Sabbath. Hopefully that's the right one, because we look like dummies. Good with Arcades. Arcades. Tangent off here for a second. It has to be the best card for residual sales. Their Arcades commander deck is so popular. It's insane. Everyone's buying Wall Blossoms.
Shield Spheres?
And Wall Blossoms is now, like, is hot. Ooh, draws you 2 cards. Deals 4 damage. Runic Armasaur does 5 damage. This guy's so weird. I think my cube is pretty big for me to try this.
The ability has to be too inconsistent.
It has to be. And the body's kind of whatever. If it was 3/5, obviously. But no, not 3/5. Speaking of and inconsistent abilities, Thorn Lieutenant, 1 and a green, 2/3, Elf Warrior. Whenever it becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, create a 1/1 green Elf Warrior creature token. Pay 5 and a green. It gets +4/+4 till end turn. 6 mana is a lot of mana for making a big vanilla no evasion idiot.
It's very sealed deck.
Oh,
Costed.
Yeah. It's an elf, I guess, and you play it in elf decks, makes more elves. This card's interesting. It's no Sylvan Advocate, who requires no extra effort to kind of be bigger.
The base stats are pretty reasonable for what you're paying for.
Yeah, the card's fine. I'm sure you'll never activate its ability, but it's interesting. 2 mana, 2/3. A bunch of almost relevant abilities. Not terrible. This card has to be... What am I looking for here?
Hanjo main?
Probably plays Hanjo. Vivian Reed. 3 green. Starts with 5 loyalty. +1. Look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature or land card from among them. Put that card into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of the library of any order. -3. Destroy target artifact, enchantment, or creature with flying. Because, that's what the bow is for. -8. You get an emblem with creatures you control have +2/+2, vigilance, lifelink, and indestructible.
And trample. Not lifelink.
And trample. Why did I say lifelink? Vigilance, trample, indestructible. +2/+2. Card kills Bone Dragon. Slam dunk. Anyway. So this card, when it first came out, I know when I first read it, I was like, oh yeah, this card's just a bad Frailes, or it has to be a bad something else.
Doesn't protect itself.
Doesn't protect itself. It's what is this card, really? So, this is a card that I read. The more and more I read it, and the more I actually, is it actually better? Is it actually worse than Frailes? Is it better than this? Is it better than that? The actually more I like the card. It is, at the end of the day, extremely boring, but it's. I still think it's very good. I don't know if it's better than any of the Garrick's. Like, it's not better than Garrick Wildspeaker. I think 5 mana Garrick is probably just the best 5 mana Planeswalker if it wasn't triple green. But I do like it more than Frailes. I think its minus is significantly better than Frailes. I think most of its abilities are better than Frailes, but it...
What about 3 mana Nisa?
One second, let me finish with Frailes for a second. Frailes has a third ability. It has its ultimate that it can activate relatively easily with this one. Yeah. Its ultimate is also very good, but like Frailes kind of has 2.5 abilities. This card just has, more often than not, 2 abilities. So even though I do think those 2 abilities overall are better than Frailes, I do think that Frailes having the extra half ability at least competes with it, or I think makes it a little closer than.
Very similar cards.
Yeah, a little closer than they should be. I like the draw card effect out of Vivian. It doesn't protect itself. That's a little worse.
Well, green is the color that if it's not going to protect itself, it's most likely
It's
to have guys
it's
on
the
the
most
ground.
excusable to not protect itself. So, I know this card came out to super lukewarm feelings. Again, I'm not trying to sell you on Vivian. I just think it's maybe a little better than people think it is.
The 3-mana Nisa.
So, if we're not comparing to Gideon's, or Garrick, sorry, we're comparing it to Nisa. So, Nisa Vital Force, Nisa 3-mana, Nisa Voices in a card. World Waker. So I think World Waker is the bottom. World Waker is fine. Nisa has all these like make land creatures. So let's compare it first to Nisa Vital Force. It's like the easiest because it costs 5. Nisa Vital Force makes land 5/5 till end turn. I've never been a huge fan of that ability.
But in a huge ability.
Certain matchups, that ability is very, very, very good. Right? Control, it's actually beating. It's -3, I think it is. Regrowth is a card. That's also fine. It generates a different kind of value than Vivian does. And then again, Nisa Vital Force is another planeswalker that ultimates very fast. So it does have 2.5 abilities. I do like Vivian's first 2 abilities more overall than Vital Force, but again, Vital Force having the actual ability to have an ultimate very consistently, I think pushes it a little more ahead. So then 3-mana Nisa is another green planeswalker. The 1 green makes a plant, or gives you creatures bonus encounters, or has an ultimate that does something. I can't remember it for the life of me for some reason. It doesn't come up very often. So we're going to go to I already preloaded all these, thankfully, because I knew this was going to come up. You get X life and draw X cards, or X is the number of lands you control. That effect isn't bad. You don't really get to it. You kind of trade off plants and most encounters. So, green is, I guess, a little more fortunate that it has, maybe if...
They don't have a lot of diversity.
They don't. Like, the Garricks make mana and beasts. Their Nisas, generate some sort of little value and animate lands. And then Fraley's, kind of being the odd child, makes, has the shatter effect, makes elves, and draws cards. So, Nisa, or not New Nisa, Vivian Reed, it's kind of a bit of a mixed bag of all of them. So it has a kind of a Garrick-esque ultimate. It has kind of the Fraley's minus ability. And it has kind of a Nisa, a Johnny, green-white, a Johnny plus ability. So I do like the whole, how this card works from top to bottom. I do like all 3 effects. I'm not sure if it's better than 5-mana Nisa. I'm not sure if it's better than Fraley's. And then 3-mana Nisa just fills it a completely different role. But I do, again, the more and more I read this card, the more and more I like it. I wouldn't be surprised if I tried it eventually. I do currently play Garrick Wildspeaker and Garrick Primal Hunter. But if we're not, so if we're taking limiters off and playing whatever we want, I'd probably be playing with Vivian too. In a world where you just play all the good planeswalkers, I think Vivian's good.
Playing 3-mana Nisa and Garrick Wildspeaker.
I played 3-mana Nisa for a long time. And mostly because 3-mana Nisa was the most unique out of all the Nisas. Beyond blue-green Nisa, which now exists, but that's not different cap. Different wedge. Doesn't matter.
It's the only good Simic card anyways.
Yeah, pretty much only good Simic card. And that brings us to the last colors. Colors? Gold. Gold colors. So we got all 5 of the Elder Dragons in this set, including a Magic Origins-esque Nicol Bolas.
A little bit of a surprise.
Actually, I think it's quite a surprise. That Nicol Bolas has the Origins style, where it's the dragon form, then Spark Ignites and turns into a Planeswalker, which I loved a lot in Origins. It was my favorite thing about it. But before I get to Nicol Bolas, let's talk about the only other Elder Dragon, and that's Chromium, the Mutable. Chromium is 4 white, blue, black Elder Dragon. Flash. The spell cannot be countered. Flying. You can discard a card until end turn. Chromium the Mutable becomes a human with base power and toughness 1/1, loses all abilities, gains hexproof, and can't be blocked this turn. Turns into an invisible stalker. But dodges removal. So, this card is big. It's going to resolve. It's not going to die.
It's got the best art in the set, in my opinion. I love this art.
Weird. This is a very Drew art. I don't like it very much, but it is a very Drew art. Either way, this card just doesn't die, right? It's a very solid Esper win condition. It's going to get you there,
Well, if you're playing Esper cards, I guess its main contender is Sphinx of the Steelwind, probably. And
so
they serve 2 very different purposes.
Absolutely. Right? So most people play some amount of tricolor cards, and they balance it, to each their own. I personally, I play 4. I don't like, for a while I forced having 5 different ones. But I just don't like forcing myself to play cards I don't want to play. So I settled on 4, and it's Siege Rhinos, Sphinx of Steelwind, Painful Truths, and Nicol Bolas Godpharaoh. So, Chromium, main competition, Sphinx of Steelwind. Sphinx of Steelwind, I think it's the nod because it's an artifact, and I play Tinker. In a world where you're just reanimating both, they're both fine. They serve different purposes, but Chromium is a definitive win condition. But again, they're both still fine. But again, being an artifact will kind of edge out Chromium for me, unfortunately. So that brings us to...
It's like 2 cards.
It is. I'm sure we need to read both, so they're both on here. Nicol Bolas the Ravager. This card definitely has to be the most exciting card in the set. I don't think it's particularly close. Definitely the most expensive. Nicol Bolas the Ravager is 1 blue, black, red for a 4/4 flying. When Nicol Bolas the Ravager enters the battlefield, each opponent discards a card. Pay 4 blue, black, red, exile Nicol Bolas the Ravager, then return him to the battlefield transformed under his owner's control. Activate this ability only time you can activate a sorcery. And then the other side of him, he starts 7 loyalty, +2, draw 2 cards. -3. Nicol Bolas the Arisen deals 10 damage to target creature or planeswalker. -4, put target creature or planeswalker card from your graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. And -12, put all but the bottom card of target players, or exile all but the bottom card of target player's library.
So when he transforms, he gets shoulder armor.
He does. He also gets the little, his horn gets like some gear on it, and he gets the little thing in his thing. Anyway. So before we get, try to evaluate the back of him, the back of him was obviously insane. Very powerful. All of his abilities are home. Why does it Searing Wind things? It's super weird. Anyway. Nicol Bolas the Ravager. The problem with Nicol Bolas the Ravager is the fact that, obviously, he's super cool up front. Fine mana cost of body. But because it's such a huge investment to transform him, you just can't do it until it's like mega shields down. There's no world where you risk transforming it into almost anything. My opponent could have literally anything. He could have 4 contagions in his hand, or 2 contagions and a bunch of black cards, and there's no chance I'm going to play into it, right? He has to have nothing. Because if you spend 7 mana trying to flip this, you're going to have a bad time.
Yeah, nimble obstructionists.
So, I want to like this card a lot, but and as excited as I was the first time I saw it, I do think that the risk versus reward of playing Nicol Bolas the Ravager compared to any other Nicol Bolas, so Nicol Bolas Godpharaoh or Nicol Bolas Planeswalker, I just don't want to mess with the body side of it. I'm playing Grixis. If I'm playing Grixis, I'm playing Control Deck anyway. I can afford to wait 2 turns to Godpharaoh them, and Godpharaoh is already so hard to beat. So this card is super interesting. Nicol Bolas the Arisen is super, super powerful. But just like the risk versus investment, it can't be worth it.
Well, just like Chromium, the problem is he already has a very good alternative. And there's no reason to, unless you want less planeswalkers and more interaction, there's no real reason to play this slightly weaker version.
So I do like this card because it's just in a 3-color card that is playable, which is fine. I'm happy with those. And if you can't flip it, this is literally what dreams are made out of, right? In terms of raw power, this card's bananas. It's just, again, you're gonna get blown out and you're gonna have a bad time.
Sorcery.
This card's really cool, though. I still like it a lot. I can't convince myself to play it. Godpharaoh's so good. Oh my god, Godpharaoh's so good. Anyway, Nicol Bolas Ravager, face of the set, excellent card. Probably not making the cut. So I guess that's it. That's it for gold cards. So it's been the second half of Core Set 2019. It being a Core Set with no new mechanics is great because
one of the better ones overall for cards that are playable in Cube.
Probably. We definitely talked about a lot of cards this time around, and I don't even think a lot of them are too much of a stretch. Sans, maybe Bone Dragon. Why not Bone Dragon? So this card's pretty cool. Set's pretty cool. I'm pretty happy with it. There are similar to Dominaria, actually. I think the sets have been fairly consistent. It's like the past couple sets have had a lot of very near misses. So all the power level cards seem to be coming up higher and higher. and the cards that are of cube quality. So like, and for me, there are a lot of near misses, which means the higher you go, the more playables there are. Which
means
has
at
to be
450 you're starting to hit.
Yeah, I'm starting to which is great because like 450 is kind of like pretty tight as it is, so to break into that's kind of difficult. I know you're a little up from that at 540, and then a little up from that 630. So I've been overall very happy with the amount of options. Even if I don't end up playing that many, I'm still overall excited about all the different. Just even like the way red's looking, black creatures are finally getting better. This like gold cards are getting better. Like all these, everything's better. Everything's great. Core set's great. Very happy with it. I look forward to updating my cube tutor list. I haven't done that yet, but I have to do that. We'd like to thank Mana Base again, your home base for all things Magic the Gathering. They're the great provider. Lets us bring this quality content to you, maybe 2 times a month.
Maybe.
Sometimes 2 times a month. Maybe once a month. So, if you missed part 1, be sure to check it out in the description there. We'll also have a recaps top 10 if you just want to see essentially what you just watched, but a lot faster.
Rapid fire.
Check that out. Other than that, we'll see you next time. I'm Aaron.
I'm Drew.
And don't play Bone Dragon.